Oh, hey, Jason. I'm gonna be. Let's see where. Let's see. I'll be starting about 20. Christy. Oh, that's fine. Doesn't matter what you're drinking as long as you're drinking with us. So all well and good there. Well, I've logged in extraordinarily early. Just to make sure, yesterday it did not show up on the J. Wilkes Wines website. So we wanted to make sure that that is going to work today. So I've got my phone right over here that's going to be getting video from putting it up on the Wes Hagen Facebook page. So we'll be in good shape. Yes, whatever you choose. And yes, that is the magic bottle, will be the Smashberry. And hey, I've got the can too. And we've got lots of information about tasting wine, evaluating wine, and why it really doesn't matter on a normal basis. So that'll be fun. Cool. So settle in. I'm going to be organizing my far-flung belongings and checking in on the missus. And then probably in about 8 minutes or so, I'll fire up sort of Q&A, and I will slowly and carefully remove myself from the video. And yes, I am wearing pajama pants. Yeah, that's how it goes. Cool. I think I got the breathing all figured out. Done. Sausage and peppers tonight. Woo. So, how spicy is the sausage, and are the peppers or all three? Generally for sausage and peppers, I think Italian reds go beautifully. Sangiovese, a Barbera, Primitivo, something like that. If the peppers are spectacularly quite spicy, there's actually really nice ways to make a Alsatian Riesling or a Gewürztraminer or a wine in that style work really well. I really like white wine with sausage and peppers, although that is not a traditional match. That's one reason why I probably love it so much. Yeah, I would do for sausage and peppers. Let's see. In a traditional way, I put a tiny little bit of barbecue sauce and sriracha in my sausage and peppers. Kind of gives it a bright, spicy, slightly sweet flavor. And I use usually, excuse me, Italian hot sausage, which isn't all that spicy, but it's just spicy enough. If you wanted to do something traditional, I would do an Italian styled red, Pinot Noir, or a light bodied to medium bodied red. Something between, rosé would be also absolutely beautiful. Sparkling wine goes with just about everything, as does Pinot. The only thing I would have if the sausages are so spicy that they would make you sweat, I would have beer. Otherwise, Pinot Blanc, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, or a nice light to medium bodied red wine would be exactly what I would suggest. Okay, I'm going to write something on my Wes Hagen Facebook page, and then I will be right back. All right. All right, it is official. I have found my comfortable place, my studio, my family room / office. I write this place off on my taxes of this beautiful square footage just so I don't have to pay too much for anything. This is officially wine area that we're sitting in. So welcome to the folks that have come on in. Looks like we got Jason, we got Christy, looks like we got me, we've got John, Kirk looks like he's coming on. Love it. If you are joining us on the Wes Hagen Facebook page, I would go over to the J. Wilkes Santa Barbara, J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara page. Again, I'll say this a few times today, but it definitely has a better quality by virtue of the fact that we pay for the J. Wilkes page. The Wes Hagen page is free. So as a result, they do actually throttle a little bit of quality, and the quality is always the highest on the commercial and professional site. Also, if you are so inclined, if you are in any groups on Facebook that might enjoy, hey, welcome, Paul. Welcome, Teresa. Again, you might want to head over to J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara. The quality is a little bit better over there, and my camera is a little bit better, and I tend to look at that camera a little bit more. If you'd like this side of my face, so be it. That's great. There will not be any screen sharing or PowerPoint stuff tonight. So it's basically going to be the Wes Hagen show starring my head. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And welcome, Steve. Looks like he just came over. And like I said, if you guys have Facebook groups that you're a part of, or even if you don't, you can always do a watch as a group, and you can watch this as a group and invite friends to come in and enjoy it. You don't even have to do it while it's live. If you want, if you found an episode to be, or a part of an episode to be something you want to share with your friends, or 5 o'clock, you want to meet with your friends and day drink with us all, we'd appreciate it. Go ahead and start a Facebook watch party, and you can watch this thing with your friends and invite your friends, and it increases our footprint, which makes my boss happy, which makes us all happy, which makes sure that we're selling wine, we're talking about wine, we're having fun with wine. Cool enough. Kirk, welcome back. It's good to see you again. You're obviously a glutton for punishment. You have decided to return, which we really appreciate. One thing you might want to, Eric's back. Good. And Zinman as well. One thing you might want to, let's see, what was I going to say? Well, obviously, get yourself something to drink. Get yourself something delicious to sip on. I'm going to go get a tissue just in case. Of course, every time I'm worried that I'm sick, my nose starts to run for no other reason but just to mess with me. And my nose has been running for about 2.5 weeks, and I've yet to get a cold. So I'm going to go grab a tissue as well as a vitamin. Aren't so bad. All right. Yes. I will try to wear a shirt with some interesting value on it and try not to let you see that I'm in my pajamas still. But I did actually put something on the bottom half of my body yesterday, other than pajamas, for the first time in almost 3 weeks yesterday, and those were shorts. And we've had a very chilly kind of California winter this year, 50s and 60s, etc. And welcome, Beth. Beth, welcome. Wow. I remember you very fondly, Beth. Beth was a junior high school and high school friend of mine. I think we were in choral music for a few years, and we kind of ran in sort of concentric circles socially. So you helped me feel connected to a new school and a new school district when I had to move in 7th grade, which is probably the worst time in the world. We were in choral music back before it was cool. Like, I think, females in choral music in 7th and 8th grade back in 81, 82, 83, that made a lot of sense. I always thought it was brilliant to be in choral music. A, I love to sing, but B, it was always 90% women, 10% guys. So we were always around ladies, and there were a lot of practices and a lot of traveling and all that good stuff. And it was a great time in my life, although we were not nearly as cool as those kids from Glee. So I don't know how you can turn choral music from something like I went to school with, and wasn't exactly considered the coolest thing you could do. The Madrigals, the folks who sang a cappella, they had a little bit more love though. So. All right, I'm going to take this a little bit out of the way, make sure I'm watching all of our questions. Kent's Red last night was great. Okay, so yeah, so Anu was talking about the Kent's Red blend. The Kent's Red blend is 90% Barbera, 10% Lagrine, and it is available on the website. Right now, the J. Wilkes stuff is all 20% discounted when you buy 6 bottles. We're going to be looking at ways of encouraging you guys to enjoy these talks, as well as being able to get some wine at a really good price. Now, if you're watching here on Wes Hagen Facebook, you might want Phil, Beth, Rick, You'll get a better picture and a wider picture and a little bit better quality if you go over to the J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara page. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you how to drink. All I'm saying is it's day drinking with Wes Hagen, and you better have something in the glass that was fermented, even if it's kombucha, and it was fermented just for your own health. This is a show about fermented beverages, for fermented beverages, about fermented beverages, and we're going to talk all about those. So we got about 5 minutes before we launch into the actual tasting. I usually use this time to encourage people to go over to the J. Wilkes Santa Barbara site for a little higher quality, and this is also the time where I would ask if any of you have questions that you want me to cover tonight. What are we doing tonight? We're going to be talking about the Smashberry Paso Robles blended red wine. Also, over at the other Facebook site, at J. Wilkes Wines Santa Barbara, this will actually appear with Smashberry reading the correct way. So there's that too. And we're going to talk a little bit about this whole phenomenon of wine in cans. Wine in cans was absolutely crushing. Basically sales. We saw an increase in sales in canned wine, like something like 65% in 2019, which sounds not like, but is an absolute game changer. It was an absolute game changer until we saw the increase of people drinking seltzers. And if you've watched these shows over the last few nights, I talk a fair amount of smack about seltzer. Basically, I like the taste of wine. I like the taste of spirits. I like the taste of beer. Maybe I'm different, but having something that has, no flavor, but, I don't understand why people wouldn't save 50% of their cost and buy a handle of Grey Goose and a bunch of really nice, either those Perrier naturally flavored waters, which I think are the best sort of La Croix type waters out there, or buy La Croix, buy Bubbly or whatever you want, and put good vodka instead of, moderately decent, probably malted alcohol into a drink and make yourself a spritzer with high quality ingredients. And you'd still probably pay less than half of what you would for a spritzer. And spritzer makes sense when you're going out and you want something in the cooler. You can grab it, you can drink it. It obviously is good for people watching carbs. I obviously am trying to keep my carbs to 30 grams of carbs a day. So seltzers would make sense for me, but I just think they're generally awful. Oh, that's good. No, Mai Tais, cocktails, I have an issue with cocktails, and we're 3 minutes out from the beginning of our tasting. Hey, Cheryl. I hope the McPhillips are doing well. By the way, my Facebook page is going to have a slightly less high quality picture of me doing this Facebook Live. If you want the best picture, go over to J. Wilkes Wines Santa Barbara, and that'll have the best stuff. Oh, and Mark. What's up, Mark? I suspect Mark is probably not drinking a wine, but he's probably, maybe a Heineken? But there's some other Locking Data folks on too. So looking forward to that. And Jolie is on. She's right over there in Glendora, California, where and Ash owns Taste of the Valley, as well as some fantastic liquor stores all up and down the coasts of Central California. And Kari, I even said your name right. Kari actually is a fantastic local chef. And Michael Bavacqua is watching. And Carrie, what's up, Carrie? It's good to see everybody. We've got 2 minutes and we're going to be launching right into the Smashberry wines. So this is a great time for you to either Anu notices the candle. That's producer Chanda's work right there. And if you look really carefully, right on the main one, there's a book right there. And that is a first edition copy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that I gave to my wife for her 42nd birthday, with a towel that had "Don't Panic" embroidered in it. So, geeks do as geeks are, and how lucky I am to be in a relationship with a woman as wonderful as my wife. She helps me produce my silly little show and does such a good job. And Marie and Barney are on down there in the greater Los Angeles area and West Hills. And Joseph mentions April Fool jokes. I thought about it. Nah, it's going to be hard to get away. The best one I saw was on Reddit, and it basically said that Trump canceled the 2020 election. And people freaked out without even thinking. They went straight to the political place. They clearly had not done enough day drinking to have a little bit of that moment of what was going on. So this is not a political show. We don't talk politics here. Once in a while, I do interject about science and rationality and the things that have extended the human lifespan by 30 or 40 years since the Age of Enlightenment. I do think, obviously, that having a science-based response to any science-based problem is obviously a wonderful thing. Yes. The answer is 42. The question is what it is, and it's not 6 times 7, even though we thought that might be a good one. All right, Jim's in the house. Syrah Rosés from one of your favorite Ballard wineries, of course, Jim. And hey, I'm not in this seat to just talk about Miller Family Wines. I'm paid by the Miller Family Wine Company to be in this seat talking to you guys about wine. But my general goal is what I learned from Paul Mabray when I took a class with him up at Davis, and that is to keep internet-based education 90% topical and 10% business. So I try to keep it almost more 95% topical, 5% business. Now, we want to move some wine. Eventually, I'm going to ask you guys to buy some wine. You know that. And you know that there's lots of wine out there for you guys to buy. So I really want to make sure that I'm showing you good wines. We're giving you guys good options, good value, and that I'm showing you wines and giving you truthful answers about wines that I would honestly and happily serve in my own home. So everyone, thanks and welcome again to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. It is 5 o'clock and it's still day in the Central Coast of California. So let's get busy. So we're starting tonight with the Smashberry. And Nikki, welcome Nikki and Richard. And by the way, both of you, if you want a better picture and better quality, and I'm trying not to say this again, go over to J. Wilkes Wines Santa Barbara Facebook page. It's a commercial page, and it streams a little bit faster and a little higher quality. Plus, I look at that camera a little bit more often. And when you look at labels, they're not backwards. So it's good to see Nikki from Liquid Farm. If you've had those Liquid Farm wines, you know just how delicious they are. And I used to be one of her growers, which I was very proud of. Nikki and Jeff found me at a Pasadena event maybe 20 years ago, and basically said, we'd really like you to grow us some Chardonnay for our new label, Liquid Farm. And how do you say no to someone like Nikki saying, can I have some Chardonnay? Yes, Nikki, you can always have some Chardonnay. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so let's go ahead and open our Smashberry. The way that I've shown you to do screw caps, of course, is to open from the collar. Makes a cool sound. And then open the top. That way you'll never cut yourself. This is, you can see right there on the back, you've got 60% Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Cab Franc, and Grenache. This one used to be a little more off dry, a little extra residual sugar. We've taken it down to about 3 grams. So it's going to taste almost bone dry. Women with really extraordinary palates can taste residual sugar down to 2 to 2.5 grams per liter. Men usually start picking it up around 4 grams per liter. Super tasters, master psalms, 3 grams per liter. So this wine is going to come across to 95, 99% of American palates as bone dry. I'll make sure you see that lovely saturated color. So why break down and you have to read this backwards, but Merlot, Cab Sauv, Syrah, Cab Franc, Grenache. So this is a Bordeaux-Rhone blend. I like to call it a Cabernet blend because one of the early ones I drank in Santa Barbara County was some wine I bought from I bought from an undesignated winemaker who made wine without having it legally bonded. So he would sell me these cases for $120 a case, and the wine was a Cabernet Syrah blend from what is now the Los Olivos district and Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara. So Cabernet was always a wonderful way to describe it. Blended red wines are hot right now. We originally launched Smashberry to be up there as like more of a high-end apothic or a high-end menage a trois. The idea of making a soft red when soft reds were going off the dial, and everyone wanted slightly sweet red wine. We've decided that the best wine we can make from these varietals is dry, and we're also pushing forward the exact same blend in 375 milliliter cans. These cans are, believe it or not, exactly half a bottle of wine, 375 milliliters. So nice can, looks pretty. The wine is definitely effusive and fruity. Sorry, you wonderful folk, you should see the can too. Why do I have two cameras going? Because I want to have a live feed on Wes Hagen Facebook feed as well as the J Wokes Facebook feed. We'll end the one on Wes Hagen for a while, but I just can't stop because I want to make sure that people on my Facebook page know that I'm doing this and they can come over and watch what we're doing. All right, let's talk about nose. So this wine was basically picked at night. It was picked at about an average of 24 and a half bricks, which brings it in, this wine in at 13.6 alcohol, which is a very elegant level of alcohol, very temperate level of alcohol for a Paso Robles red wine, which can honestly get into the 15s and 16% alcohols quite easily. I would put it in the medium-bodied plus. Remember when we talk about body in wine, we were originally just last week talking about milk and how like Sauvignon Blanc would be like drinking fat-free milk, and Chardonnay would be like drinking 2%, and Pinot Noir, or Cabernet would like be drinking whole milk, and port or a dessert wine would be like drinking dessert wine. So would be like drinking cream. And I don't drink cream. Just a little bit of my coffee is all I need. So we've got this blended red wine that is Merlot dominant. I mean, obviously, Merlot took a little hit from that stupid movie about men behaving badly that did for Santa Barbara Pinot Noir what the Soviet Union did for socialism. Of course, I'm talking about Sideways, but we don't really use the S word around here as much as we can. We got through that, and we're maturing as an industry for sure. Chris, welcome. Doug, welcome. So glad you're here. So I would say in the nose, I get pretty ripe, pretty effusive red berry fruits. So think of any berry that's red. Not a lot of black fruits, not a lot of the cassis. There's only a very small amount of Cabernet Sauvignon in here. Would I guess it's a blended red wine? Well, I'd love to say that I would guess it's a blended red wine. Why? Well, one of the things I love about the Smashberry, especially the 17, is that 5% of Grenache. And what is 5% Grenache going to do? Is it really going to make a big deal? It actually does. And I love what the winemakers and what Thomas Fertel did for this wine. When we went from a slightly sweeter wine to a slightly drier wine, this being the drier wine, we included just enough Grenache to give it a little confectionery edge. And when I can say confectionery, I'm talking about sort of the smell you get when you're eating cotton candy and you can smell what you're eating, that sweet kind of candied aroma and flavor. Mr. O'Donnell, it's good to see you. I hope to see you up at later in May at the next University of Redlands Literature Week. We'd love to see you guys up there. So again, it's going to be bright confectionery fruit. Smells a little sweeter than it is. It's going to have that nice bright kind of come hither fruit in the nose, and then when you put it in your mouth, it's going to be a little drier than you would imagine. Good tannin. The Syrah is going to give it a little bit of black pepper. You're going to get that juicy, plummy character from the Merlot. Merlot is added to all Bordeaux wines to give it soft, plush, sort of that lovely plummy character. And when I smell plum in a wine, it's usually, my brain usually goes to Merlot. Grenache is going to give you a little bit of that sweet grapiness in the nose. And then Cabernet Franc is going to give you some spice, going to give you some tannin, going to get some density. And then I would say, of course, a little bit of that sort of mocha dark chocolate nibs, kind of a little hint to it. It doesn't smell like Bordeaux. It doesn't smell like Australia. It doesn't have, it's effusive and fruity, but it's not over the top jammy at all. At 13.6 alcohol, it's not going to come across as massive and jammy at all. It's actually just a perfectly balanced table wine for having almost anything that you would love with red. I think about it's light enough for like a pork loin, or maybe some pulled pork or carnitas with some light salsa if you were doing it with sort of a Mexican vibe. For some reason, though, my brain is going straight to a short ribs with sort of a gravy, maybe some polenta, or some mashed potatoes would be great. I mean, it's Smashberry. It's meant to sound fun and be fun. So, anything takeout, you got your pizza, you can do it with fried chicken. You could have it, with Chinese food. I think, there's definitely other options for that, but I think this wine, it's got some density and some richness, but it's also light on its feet and very, very well made. And Will Costello suggests that it's amazing with grilled meats, and you got to take his advice seriously because, he's one of 267 master sommeliers in the world. Will loves the fact that for every one master sommelier on the planet Earth, 100 human beings have been to space. Almost 3,000 human beings have been into space, and less than 300 human beings have achieved the title of master sommelier. I don't know. I've yet to meet a master sommelier that did not respond positively to that fact. Liked that quite a bit. Yes, and the same wine is going to be basically in your can, and the can is super easily crushable. It's a nice session beverage. You can bring them to the beach. You can bring them anywhere you want. Back in the day where we went places, they're very easy to store if storage is an issue. If you bought 800 rolls of toilet paper thinking it would protect you, no. Alcohol protects you far greater. I shouldn't make medical statements, but I would say that keeping wine in your house is safer. Keep you safer, happier, and more well-adjusted than keeping 600 rolls of toilet paper. So let's do this. Well, obviously, let's do this. Let's drink. Annie, welcome. Nice to have you. And Sophie, welcome as well. All right. So, wine from a can. I've done this a number of times because I sell it from a can. It is obviously not, we are going to put some rosé in a can eventually, and we might do a rosé or a Smashberry white. Color-wise, pretty much expecting to see pretty much exactly the same color. I would call it sort of a nice, sort of between a ruby, a medium plus ruby. Obviously, same wine that's in the bottle. I think there's actually a little tiny bit more complexity in the can, which is weird. I'm smelling a little more of some more varietal characteristics of Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Cassis, a little bit of Sauvage, a little bit of sort of herbs de Provence on a warm day, that kind of sagey kind of aroma that we get from wandering through areas that have sort of these herbal aromas. Phil Gallo, welcome, sir, and Janice, it's nice to have you. So lovely to have all of you here. So we're doing Smashberry 2017 from bottle, and Smashberry, I just noticed, 2016 from can. So the can is actually 1 year earlier, and as a result has shown a little bit of maturation in the can. How long can cans last? Well, it's basically a hermetic seal, but obviously whatever amount of dissolved oxygen goes into that can is the amount of oxygen that's going to be in that can, changing the wine chemically, basically over its entire life. And this is kind of a new thing. So a wine that's been in the can for almost 2 years, is it still good? Well, like I said, I actually prefer the aroma of the 16, which has a tiny little bit more residual sugar, to the 17 in bottle. The can is actually showing extraordinarily well. It would be very surprising to me if someone served this wine to me at a table and then turned around and told me that it came from a can. And Kim and Conrad, welcome. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. Get busy. If I was watching you, I would be expecting you to be drinking. So it's like you can make your own drinking game with Wes. You can say, I'm going to wait until he says the word mineral, or I'm going to wait until he says the word red fruit, or I'm going to wait until he says the word restrained. And every time I do, you could drink. So do consider that. Canned wine. It's got some dried tannins. It's a little more tannic than the last time I had it. It's definitely a little more structured than the 17. It's showing a little more dryness and a little more tannic grip, which is surprising to me because the 16 had a little more residual sugar. Neither of these wines come across as having any residual sugar. They're both coming across to me as being extraordinarily light on their feet. Cool. So Smashberry, I'll mention this at the end too, but if you go to millerfamilywines.com, you can order bottles of Smashberry for they're normally $15. You get a 50% off using the coupon code or the promo code DD50, day drinking 50, DD50. So DD50 is your magic code. Miller Family Wine Company, or excuse me, millerfamilywines.com. You can go to Smashberry, you can go to Ballard Lane, you can go to Barrel Burner. You get 50% off all of those wines. And if you order at least 6 bottles of J. Wilkes, you would get 20% off that. And it's mix and match. So basically, and it's 1 cent shipping per case. So obviously, great deals there. Today, we are actually going to be launching into a little more content that I spent a good deal of time today sort of putting together. So my brain, Jolie says, yeah, every time that I say the word the, take a drink. The. So I wanted to talk about evaluating wine. And this is kind of, why do we evaluate wine? Why do we take notes? Why do we judge wine? And what does it mean? And what can it teach us as wine drinkers? Can evaluating wine, can learning to take wine notes, can understanding wine better, does it increase our appreciation of wine, or does it decrease our appreciation of wine? And the first thing I want to say is that if any of this stuff that I was describing, any of this stuff that we're talking about, any of this stuff that we're defining does not lead you to an increased understanding or an appreciation of wine, screw it. Throw it out. First thing I would ask, is we asked that fundamental question that Tim Haney asked a couple years ago: is wine and food pairing BS? I will continue to talk about that next week when we continue talking about food and wine pairing. But evaluation of wine. Now, I would say the evaluation of wine probably started, all the way back, even with the Greeks and the Romans. I mean, you can read about Julius Caesar tasting the Falernian wine, in the very end or the very beginning of the Common Era, and then 100 years later, Nero tasting the same wine and some notes on it. So clearly, taking notes and understanding how long wine's going to last is important. Why do we evaluate wine? We evaluate wine for a few reasons. Number one, to figure out when the best time is to drink it. This wine is very tight. This wine is very open. If it's open, drink it young. If it's tight, lay it down for a little bit. Taking tasting notes. How can tasting notes actually help you drink better wine and understand wine better? Here's my point. Say that you find that every wine that you taste, that you notice a strawberry reference in the nose or the flavor of the wine, and you love it. Pinot Noirs that smell like cherries, they don't really do it for you. Pinot Noirs that smell like strawberries, they rock your world every single time. Well, that gives you the opportunity to take that understanding of strawberry rum and wine and go into a wine store and say, hey, I love Pinot Noir that has a strawberry aroma to it. Okay, well, now you've got a tool. So evaluation as a tool can be incredibly important. So what I would say is you have these two things. I like to use golf a lot as an analogy for this. So let's talk about practice versus pleasure. Practice is taking some time away from pleasure to do things over and over that might not be pleasurable while you do them. But when you go to actually perform what you want to do, you have the chance for having more pleasure. So going and hitting 100 golf balls, is it fun? Yeah, you're outside, you're hitting golf balls, you're talking to the guys on the practice tee, whatever. But the idea is you're putting off the pleasure of playing golf. So when you go play golf, you'll play better. And that's what I want to talk about, practice versus pleasure. So is it not pleasurable to taste wine and take tasting notes? I actually find it's very pleasurable. It's one of my favorite things to do. Now, it is part of my job, so I probably wouldn't sit around and do it all day, every day just for fun, because I'm paid to do it and it's what I do. So I would say, to me, taking tasting notes is the practice. It's like swinging. It's like taking putts. It's like training my brain to think, to swirl, to smell, to taste, and to define. And the more I do that, the better the chance I'm going to have that when someone gives me a wine and I'm swirling it and I'm smelling it and I'm tasting it and I'm considering it and thinking about it, that I'm not going to miss it. It's the same thing. The larger your frame of reference, if you've never tasted Bordeaux, you don't know what Cabernet Sauvignon can do. If you've never tasted Burgundy, you don't know what Pinot Noir can do. You know what Pinot Noir in the region where you drink it is coming from. But the idea is to evaluate as many wines as possible, which brings up the idea, when we're no longer practicing social distancing, how is the best way, the most economical way to taste more wines and tons of wines that you might not be able to taste otherwise? And the answer is to put together a tasting group between 16 and 20 people, or 12 and 20 people, and get together once a month and have a theme. The theme is Syrah and Syrah-based wines from all over the world under $30. Central Coast Pinot Noirs, Santa Rita Hills Chardonnays. And everybody bring a wine that's bagged. No one knows what it is. You open it in the bag, you pour it, you take a taste, very small taste. You take some notes on it. Once everyone's tasted and taken notes on all the wine, pull everything out of the bag, put it in the middle of a table, let everyone look to see which wines were which, and reevaluate them knowing what they are, where they're from, who the producer is, the wine style. And if you have the opportunity to, whatever wine you bring, learn about the wine, learn about the winery, learn about the winemaker, so you can present the wine and teach someone something about something, so they can look back on their notes and have that frame of reference. So when they taste another wine from that region, they know a little bit more about what's going on. So it's sort of like homework versus performance. How much homework are you going to put in? And then the homework could be going to table tastings, a tasting from Sonoma Coast wineries, Santa Rita Hills wineries, Santa Barbara wineries, whatever. A big tasting in LA, a big tasting in San Francisco. They will happen again. And then trying to at least take some notes on what you're tasting. When you go to those giant tastings where there's 100 different wineries and maybe 1,000 wines in the room, choose your battles. And welcome, Trey, and welcome, Barbara. Really appreciate you being here. In the sense that when you're in a table tasting where there's 1,000 wines, saying, I'm going to taste the 17 Pinot Noirs, and then I'm going to go around and taste the 18 Pinots. So you're going to go around from table to table asking for very specific things to try to teach yourself a very specific skill set. I'm going to learn what Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir tastes like. I'm going to learn what Santa Rita Hills Chardonnay tastes like. I want to learn more about Santa Barbara County Syrah. That is exactly how you do it. You break down things. And then I also love people, when you are at those tastings, always go whites, reds, whites, reds. Don't do all your whites first and then all your reds. Mix up with your whites and your reds. Whites, 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 couple reds, whites, 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 couple reds. And as soon as your palate feels really fatigued, go back to a crisp aromatic white wine like a Pinot Grigio, Pinot Blanc, or a Sauvignon Blanc. And if that doesn't work, go to Champagne. And if that doesn't work, go to an IPA. Cleanse the palate. I sometimes, even in the middle of a tasting, if I just can't, I might actually go in to the bathroom and actually put some warm water at my nose and then blow it out and wash my face afterwards. I find that is a really positive way of refreshing my palate. And I also find that, a little bit of a neutral food, little roast beef for reds. I'll actually take a little roast beef and put it on my finger and rub my teeth and my tongue, because the protein will actually remove some of the tannins from my tongue. That seems to work really, really well as well. Awesome. Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of like a couple different models of wine drinking. And the first one is going to be the hedonistic model of wine drinking. And that means that screw taking notes, screw talking about wine. I want to drink and feel the effects of what wine does for my head, my body, and for my intoxication. So the hedonistic model would be like, oh, people who take notes, they're just justifying their own drinking. People that say they're a wine geek, they just love to drink alcohol and make excuses and justify by, how come, people do it in cannabis too. They know everything about cannabis. You don't normally hear people talking about, heroin or cocaine in the same way, and we'll leave that alone. But when we talk about wine, it just so happens that there's more written in the history of the world about wine than any other intoxicant, period. More written about than beer, more written about than whiskey, more written about than tequila or mezcal. Wine fires the imagination of creative people more than just about anything. So this hedonistic model rejects the fancy part of wine and says, wine is alcohol and it's nothing much more. So we're drinking, we're eating, we're having fun. And we don't, that a great description of hedonistic model would be wine should lead to a conversation about everything except itself. Okay. So let's move from the hedonistic model to the Epicurean model. So Epicurus obviously moved hedonism from a Greek perspective to a new Greek perspective, which was, we're still hedonists. We're still all about the buzz. We're all about the party. We're all about how our head feels. But damn it, if we want to eat, we're going to eat the most delicious things on the planet. If we want to drink, we're going to drink the most delicious things on the planet. The hedonist says, bring me a double and make it right from the well. I could care less. An Epicurean says, yes, I would like a double whiskey, but I would like the Pappy Van Winkle 17. So the Epicurean knows enough from their hedonistic practice to understand what they really want to eat or drink. And Leslie and John, welcome. So as a result, so we have the hedonist who just wants to drink, the Epicurean who basically wants to be a hedonist but understands everything to a point that he only wants the best. And then you also have what I would call sort of the geek and the searcher. And they take it even to another extreme where they pride themselves. And this is almost to the sommelier level of understanding, that understanding wine, understanding beer, understanding spirits becomes so important that it becomes part of their lifestyle and part of how they talk about things all the time as they drink. So what are the cons of evaluating wine? It turns pleasure into work. It's highly subjective. Two people, oh, by the way, they did a study where they took 20 Parker reviews and 20 wines, and they gave like 100 wine drinkers, some that drink all the time, some drink once in a while, some that only drink wine once in a while. And they said, match these 20 wines to these 20 Parker reviews. And this was like 10 years ago. And they said, go. And there was actually 0% statistical significance in being able to taste wines and to match them to their Parker reviews. So do these reviews actually represent an objective evaluation of the wine that people can read and say, I like this review, so I'll like this wine? The science of it says no. I'll leave that to your own idea. It's obviously highly subjective. And then judging and evaluating for who? I've been a professional wine judge for over 22 years. And when I get together with my panel for the first time, I always have to ask the question, guys, are we judging these wines for us, or are we judging these for the general public? And the answer is yes. We have to use our own genius of human discernment to say this is a good wine objectively. But then we also have to step back and say, is this a wine that the general public will love? Quick story, first panel I was ever at the LA International Wine Competition. Back then it was the LA County Fair Wine Competition, one of the largest and oldest wine competitions in the United States. I was on a panel with Heidi Peterson Barrett, winemaker from Screaming Eagle at the time, her dad, Dr. Richard Peterson, a god of California wine. And Dr. Fred Nuri, professor emeritus, viticulture enology from Cal State Fresno, a man who's basically a legend in the business. I was my first time judging. So we got a Chardonnay on the panel, and it went gold medal, gold medal, gold medal. No, gold medal, gold medal, silver medal, silver medal. And the two silvers were Dr. Peterson and Heidi, arguably the two greatest minds in California wine. So we were like, hey, I think this wine is really damn good and deserves a gold. They were both like, hey, no, we're putting our feet down. This is a silver medal. And I said, how about if we choose a fifth judge, and they can give it whatever medal they want. And if it's a gold, we'll give it a gold. And if it's silver or less, we'll give it a silver. And Heidi and Richard were like, and Dick Peterson were like, yeah. By the way, Dick Peterson's email address, this is how long Dick Peterson's been a winemaker, winemaker@AOL.com. Yeah, that's like, wine@gmail.com. Someone has it. So we gave the wine to an Australian wine judge who was infamous for his hatred of Chardonnay. And I knew I could get a gold out of him because I knew I had judged with him before, and I knew he had a fantastic palate and he wouldn't bring his personal biases into the judging. So we gave the wine to this Australian wine judge. The Australian wine judge swirls the glass, smells it, tastes it, and he says, it's a damn fine Chardonnay. That's a gold medal wine. And Heidi and Dick kind of looked at each other and said, oh, yeah, okay, it's a gold medal. So it did win a gold medal. And when Heidi turned to him and said, but blank, you hate Chardonnay. He says, I do hate Chardonnay, but that is a gold medal Chardonnay. That is the greatest example of positive and perfect wine evaluation. It's not, you're taking yourself out of it. You're using your ideas and your production ideas of being a winemaker, being a wine judge, being a salesman, all those things come into play. But you're really looking for wines that are going to get people excited. And I think that's really what evaluation is for. So what are the pros of evaluating wine? Well, cluster description. So what I'd say is if you know how to taste a wine and describe it, and you can take the wines that you love and the descriptions of those wines into a wine shop, or looking at tasting notes and say, again, it's like that strawberry thing. I love the smell of strawberries in wines. I look for wines that have strawberries in the tasting notes, and maybe I end up getting better wines as a result. If you love wines described as full-bodied, highly concentrated, jammy, or dense, you see those in taste notes, chances are. Here's another good thing. If you know that when Robert Parker gives a wine 93 points, 94 points, you agree, you say, oh my gosh, when Robert Parker gives something 95 plus, I love it. Or like me, when Robert Parker gives something 95 plus points, I can't drink it. That way I know I don't have to spend, $300 on a bottle of 16% alcohol, highly allocated, dense red wine that leaves a stain in the glass. It's just not the style of wine that I love. Everyone should have a style of wine that they love. And when you evaluate wine and keep a wine journal, you start seeing the same way that when you keep a journal as a writer, you start seeing your writing develop. The same way when you keep a tasting notebook when you're a lover of wine, that is going to help you in. Remember also, epistemologically and educationally, how we remember things. When we read something, in general, the human brain retains about 40% of what we read. We can get that up to about 60% of what we read and take careful notes on. But we remember 90% of that which we teach another human being. So that means sharing tasting notes, sharing our evaluation of wine, and taking notes on the wine will increase and help us remember what we love about wine and how to taste and the things that we've tasted. One of my favorite quotes ever, people always ask me, it's like, gosh, why do you love wine so much? What is it about wine that gets you so fired up? And I said, well, it goes actually back to one of my greatest heroes growing up, which was Carl Sagan. And Carl Sagan was once asked, Dr. Sagan, what is it about stars? What is it about space? What is it about science and cosmology that makes you, that turns you on so much? And his response was, the closest I can tell you is the closest I can describe the magic of the universe. And it's not about religion, and it's not about a godhead, it's not about spirituality. But his quote is when you're in love, the universe notices. And I've always found that one of the most profound quotes from his book, Dragons of Eden, Speculations on the Origins of Human Intelligence, which for a book written in the late 70s, boy, that book holds up extraordinarily well. But I am in love, and the universe notices. So when I talk about wine, it goes back to every single note I wrote. Every single time I tried to define what I was tasting. And sometimes I would be trying to define it, and I'd be sitting next to a French winemaker or an owner like Aubert de Villaine from the Domaine de la Romanée-Conti, and he looked at me taking the notes and said, you don't need to take notes to understand this wine. Have a moment, but you don't have to define it. No, we don't need to define it, but we are humans and we are Americans, and we do love to take notes on things. So evaluating wines can be important. Carl Sagan, to finish that thought, he actually called written language extra genetic information. He said we have intragenetic information, and that's what's in our heads. But the coolest thing about human beings is we are the only organism on this planet that have extra genetic information. And extra genetic information means we write it on a piece of paper and we put it somewhere, and it lives longer than our brain. And someone else can pick up a piece of extra genetic information, and read it and say, ooh, and transfer it into their brain as a result of reading something that we've created in our life and put into that extragenetic form. So that's another something with wine notes. Once a wine is gone from the world, if people want to know what the Clos Pepe 2014 Estate Pinot Noir tasted like, once that wine is gone, the only way that they'll be able to actually understand maybe the typicity and the quality of that wine is to look back on the people that actually wrote notes on it. So, one thing that Heidi Peterson-Variant taught me that first time about wine evaluation is the easiest way I can teach you to evaluate wine. And that is to say a wine is either 0 or 1. And the way that she used her analog sort of, I guess it's actually digital, but this sort of yes or no evaluation model was what she learned to make wine in Germany and evaluate wine in Germany. And what Dr. Peterson or what Heidi told me the first time I judged wine is trust your palate, trust your gut. And when you talk about a wine, think about the way that I was taught to talk about a wine. It's either round or it's not round. Rund oder nicht rund. Round or not round. And that's the way that she said that she learned to taste wine with described a wine. And don't think about round as soft, without edges. I mean, we're talking about Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Gruner Veltliner, some of the wines that have the highest acidity in the world. So we're not talking about soft wines. Let's think about round as a shape. It's complete. It has a start and an end and a completeness that is completely and totally without extremes. So to me, rund or round represents a wine that is complete. The wine has a start, a finish. It tells a story. It speaks of its time and place and the winemaker that was successful in making that wine. The wine is round. If the wine is not round, it has a problem. It has a break. It has an issue. So I love the idea, and as someone with a German last name and some German blood, or at least as much German blood as I claim without doing, 23andMe, I do love the idea of round or nicht rund. You can also make your own rating system. There's really two last things I want to talk about evaluating wine, and then we'll close up. One is rating systems. The first rating system was the UC Davis rating system, which was 20 points. It gave a couple points for the visual idea of wine. Is it clear? Is it turbid? Is it brilliant? Is it clean in the glass or muddy? The aroma of the wine gave some points, and then the flavor of the wine gave the last points, and you gave it a 20-point scale. The 20-point scale was increased to the 100-point scale by Robert Parker, and then basically picked up by most places that evaluate wine, including the Wine Enthusiast, Antonio Galloni's Venice, tasting panel, you name it. 100-point scale is now sort of de rigueur. And then, the Connoisseur's Guide gave puffs. And if your wine got one puff, sort of like a Michelin star, a lot of people are like, oh, a 1-star Michelin restaurant. That restaurant must be awful. Not even 1% of fine dining restaurants achieve 1 Michelin star. 1 Michelin star is a lifelong goal for all chefs. To get 2 or 3 stars is ridiculous. It's like being, in the NBA or in the NFL. Even more difficult than that. So that whole idea is, I have a rating system when I take notes, and that is 1 to 4 stars with pluses and minuses. I've never given a wine 4 stars. I've given a lot of wines 3+. I don't want to say a wine is perfect, because for my palate, a lot of what I find to be perfection and deliciousness of wine is slight faults, rusticity, or funkiness in a wine. A wine that's just perfectly clean tends not to be that interesting unless it comes from a vineyard that shows character in a perfectly clean wine that is absolutely extraordinary. And Alan and Steve, hello. I think that's really important. So find a way that you can judge wine, and try to, if you are going to take notes on wine, try to find an objective system to write a way that you can, in one either number or series of check marks or stars, how much you enjoyed that wine. So when you go back, you have the idea of how you did. I don't suggest that you go into a 100-point wine system, because it gets so arbitrary. What does 93 points taste like? And is 94 that much better? It's difficult for me to understand. So I'm not a huge fan of the 100-point wine system, but I understand how important it was for us to get as Americans into a wine culture. I like to say that blaming Robert Parker for over-alcoholized wine is like blaming Disney for retarded Dalmatians that are blind and can't walk. And, Disney made a great movie about spotted dogs, and everyone loved that movie. And they they bought a spotted dog, and then realized Dalmatians are insane and they bite people, and they brought it to the shelter. And the same way, Robert Parker hit the 82 Bordeaux on the nose, understood how good those wines were. And then as we went along in wine, a lot of people trusted Robert Parker. When they tasted a wine that Robert Parker loved, they loved that wine. So they trusted him, and the high end of the wine market went into higher alcohol, higher extract wines. So both of them did an extraordinary job. Disney did an extraordinary job of showing that spotted dogs were cute. Robert Parker did an amazing job of showing what wines he loved, and got millions of people behind him, and changed what we call the international style of wine today. Okay, we've got one last point that I want to talk about in the evaluation of wine. I hope by now that you really understand that, Chris and JG, welcome, that I love the idea that evaluating wine can be objective, that we can understand what a good wine is, that 4 wine judges can sit around a table and agree that's a great wine. But I also agree that you should never take a professional's advice and say, well, I don't like this wine, but a professional said that I would. Trust your own palate, love what you drink, and drink what you love. But yes, you can learn wine. And I'm going to prove it to you. So what was the first organism on the planet Earth that could taste? It was the earthworm. Millions and millions of years ago, the earthworm developed the ability to move through dirt by consuming it, and making its own way through the dirt by consuming the dirt going through its digestive tract, it absorbing what it could absorb as food, and then the rest being left behind as a casting. So you're an earthworm. You're cruising through. You've got very, very incredibly rudimentary papillae on an organ that works somewhat like a tongue. You're eating through the soil. Woo! You taste something sweet. You have found energy and calories. Congratulations. Eat it and keep going. Sweet is good. Sweet means calories. It means that there's something in the soil that is going to give you energy to keep you continuing to eat through that soil. All right, so you're an earthworm, you tasted sweet. Boom, you hit salty. You hit a little salt. Wow. Well, that is kind of going to give you your choices. Do you need salt? Salt will help your blood maintain an ionic stability. Generally, all animals that live outside of the ocean keep the same percentage of salt in their bloodstream that exists in ocean water. So we keep a modified ocean within our body to allow us to live outside of the ocean. So ionic stability and that ability to have the correct salt level in our system is the reason why salt tastes good, and that we consume salt, and that salt actually tastes better at certain times where we need the ionic stability that it provides. So salt, you're this earthworm, you taste salt, you eat it because you want, or you eat it or you go around it because you do or don't need salt. Sour. You've hit something that is possibly toxic, but also something that might actually impact the pH balance of your body. So sour may be something that is enticing to you, or sour is something to be avoided. If it's so sour that it seems just so sour that it's just crazy gnarly, you would go around it. If the sour was mellow and could give you a little bit of acid to be able to maintain your pH balance in your body, you might actually consume it. So sour is good and bad. It can go either way. Bitter. You're moving through the soil, you taste something bitter, you stop, you move around it, and you avoid something bitter. Bitter is going to give you the idea that you're eating something that's toxic. Umami. So you're going through the soil, you taste something rich and proteiny. Umami is the flavor of monosodium glutamate. It's the flavor of richness. It's the flavor of savory. Savory generally means you are eating protein. Protein is going to be long-lived, being able to be sustained, and as a result, you're going to probably eat whatever tastes savory. So you're the earthworm, and you have all these abilities. Now, what's the next level of palate? You have the earthworm palate, then you have the mammal palate. And James and Jonathan, welcome. The earthworm palate moves to the mammal palate when one thing happens, and that's the development of this bad boy. And that is, why the hell can we smell? What reason would we have for mammals to develop the ability to smell? It is to be able to remotely sense sex, food, and danger. I don't know in that order, but the idea of the nose is, oh crap, is that a bear coming? I think I smell a bear. I better get the hell out of here. Whoa, is that fermenting fruit in the forest? I'm going to go track that down and eat it and get some calories and get a little high at the same time. Let's just leave the sex part alone. But in general, the idea, especially in animals that have much better noses than humans, the idea of sexuality and the ability to smell sex is incredibly important, and I'll just leave it at that. But this idea that we've gone from the earthworm palate to the mammal palate using our olfactory sense and our olfactory lobe to be able to remotely sense sex, food, as well as danger. And then it goes almost in the same Paleolithic and Chalcolithic world 10,000 years ago. It goes to the sommelier palate before wine is even being consumed, because the sommelier palate starts with the ability to sense toxicity and safety. And the women in any tribe, using their advanced ability to smell, far greater ability to smell than an average man. So if you have a Y chromosome, congratulations, you've lost 40% of your ability to smell. Women who have better palates and smell better, both literally and figuratively, would have been smelling everything that came into that front of that cave and everything that's going to be offered to the tribe, so the women can determine and detect whether that food was fresh, contained poison, toxicity, or anything else that would slow down the evolution and the safety of the tribe. So the sommelier palate is now described as people who practice smelling to try to develop. Most human beings can pick up about 5 to 7 aromas simultaneously. If you take the practice of smelling wine, smelling everything, I mean, I touch anything in the world and smell it because I want to know what plants smell like, flowers smell like. If you are constantly practicing taking tasting notes, and this is going back to evaluation, you can learn to smell more things at the same time. The world record for sort of a sommelier palate is the ability to discern between 150 and 250 aromas simultaneously. So aroma is learned. Evaluation is learned. All of these things are learned. Your ability to smell and to discern aroma and flavor are learned. So in the end, evaluation of wine is meaningless to its enjoyment. You know if you love a wine when you taste it and drink it. Day drinking. I know it's probably dark on the East Coast, but it's still day out here. So you're still day drinking remotely. So in the end, evaluating wine is as important as not evaluating wine. Evaluating wine is important if it's important to you. But it is scientifically proven. It's not like a faith thing. I taste and write notes because I have faith it will make me a better taster. It will make you a better taster. It will give you an objective ability to taste and evaluate wine better than if you didn't practice. It's the same thing as hitting 100 balls on the practice golf area every day. When you step over that golf ball on a real course and everyone's watching you, you have a better chance of making a good move, relaxing, and striking that ball down the fairway and moving it. So I think evaluating wine is important, but only important if you find it important to your own enjoyment and ongoing understanding of wine. If you love wine, there are people that I want to say, never evaluate a wine in your life, just keep loving it and drinking it. I think of my dad as being sort of in that. I mean, he could talk about wine if he wanted to, but he just loves it so much. He's just busy drinking it and too busy talking about other fun stuff. Or all the way to the point where how lucky am I to be making a good living, tasting, talking, and making wine for all of you fine folks. So it is about 5:50, and I'll start getting yelled at by Naomi if I make this much longer. So I hope you all enjoyed everything we talked about. Thank you, Janet, for your comments. I'm going to be looking as we close up. If you do have any comments, I'm going to stay on for about another 5, maybe 10 minutes, just as an excuse to keep drinking. If you guys have any questions, please posit them, and I'd be happy to answer them as best as I can. And then I did not go through all the questions on the video from yesterday because I was really busy this morning and I had to get a bunch of stuff done. But I will go through all the questions and make sure all of you guys know. Thank you, Kirk. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful evening and enjoy yourself. And I'll make sure that as we continue to do this. So the next all the on today because I was really busy this morning and I had to get a bunch of stuff done. But I will. Oh, okay, that's good. Yes. So the next big thing that we're doing is on Friday. Friday, I'm finishing the history of wine. No. Let me make sure. No. So tomorrow we're just doing one wine. Yes, you saw my pajamas. You thought I was wearing a beautiful pair of slacks. You were wrong. Friday we're doing the finishing of Intro to Food and Wine Pairing. And then Monday next we'll finish the history of wine from Julius Caesar to Pasteur. So that'll all be wonderful. And no, you never need an excuse, Barbara, to continue to drink. Just as long as, nice thing about day drinking now is we don't have to talk about driving. You got Instacart, you got anything you want, all well and good. But if you have, thank you, Michelle, for watching the replay. And if you guys have, yes, I agree, Janet. The world would be incredibly boring if there was only one wine. Hey, evaluating wine. If you were going to evaluate every wine released in the world, how many wines would you have to taste? I did the math. There's approximately 1 million wines made every year in the world, labeled as legal to sell wines, which I think you would have to taste. I think I did the math that you have to taste a wine every 22 seconds. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If you tasted a wine every 30 seconds, you could taste every wine that was released in the world. So the greatest thing about it, absolute necessity for subjectivity. We have to be subjective, which is fun because in a world where everything is, pushing political correctness and pushing that everyone kind of has to agree that this is this and this is that. And I believe in emancipative values. I believe in classical liberal values. That probably does not mean what you think. So look it up. But in the same way, it's amazing how many wines are produced all the way through the world. And hello, Karen, and welcome. We're just finishing up. I promised you I would give you a final summation. Remember the Smashberry blended red wine, which was a 90-point wine from the tasting panel, as well as the Smashberry right there. Both these wines are available at millerfamilywines.com. Use the promo code DD, capital D, 50, DD50, and that'll get you 50% off all of the Barrel Burner, Smashberry, and Ballard Lane wines. That'll bring the Smashberry 90-point wine down to $7.50. Smashberry cans, full half bottle of wine. Take it anywhere. Sip it while walking down your street. People are thinking you're drinking La Croix. It's a half bottle of wine, $3.75 at Miller Family Wine Company. MillerFamilyWines.com. Promo code is DD50. Capital D, 50. So get out there, have some fun, and thank you for coming in, Kelly. I did get your message that you were off and about. I hope you enjoy the replay. If you guys have any questions about the wines, let me know. Otherwise, definitely go to Miller Family Wines, check out the wines, check out everything else. If you have any questions about the wines, if you need any more info, let me know. I thought we had a really, really good conversation about the evaluation of wine and why it is or is not important. And we will be breaking this up, and we put all these videos on our YouTube page, YouTube for Miller Family Wine Company, as well as jwilks.com. All right. I would say I'm about ready for some dinner and maybe the rest of this beautiful bottle of wine. So I think I'm going to do maybe some pork loin and give it a shot. So I hope you guys all had a wonderful time jumping in and talking about the evaluation of wine. If you have any questions, you know where to leave them. Make sure if you haven't liked J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara, you do that. And looking forward to seeing this going. I certainly will go through and answer these questions. Yes, and Bob brought up a really good question that just came up in a meeting today, and that is, how can we get these wines out in time that you can taste them at the same time that I'm tasting them? I know that Christy and a couple other people have been doing that, and they've been incredibly prepared in thinking about this weeks ahead of time. So yeah, let's think about that. Just so you know, we're going to be doing J. Wilkes wines next week. And I'm going to I'll post on my Facebook page tomorrow morning the next 2 weeks of tastings, or about a week and a half of tastings, so you can see what we're tasting, what we're doing. And that way, if you want to jump in and buy a couple bottles of wine and have them delivered, you'll have the wine by the time I'm talking about it. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys all had a wonderful time. I'm going to take my leave. I hope you all enjoyed our time day drinking, even if it was nighttime. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere, and it usually means I'm in front of a TV or in front of a computer talking about wine. So really appreciate you coming in and having this experience with me. And I'll see you tomorrow on Thursday, and then on Friday we're going to jump into the end of the history of wine. So hope you guys enjoy. And on Saturdays we get together at 5 and we just shoot the and show each other what we're drinking on Zoom. Awesome, guys. Take good care. I'm not lying. I'm actually going to log off. Cheers.